Hello again, folks. This is Dick Simmons, bringing you direct from Hollywood one of America's most talented young men, and the possessor of what leading critics say is one of the greatest tenor voices of our day. You saw him in That Midnight Kiss, The Toast of New Orleans, and you'll soon be seeing him in The Great CARUSO. He's the personable and charming Mario Lanza. Mario, it's a pleasure.
Hello, and thanks for the nicest introduction a fellow ever had.
Oh, I couldn't be more serious, Mario. I honestly believe Enrico Caruso would be proud of you.
Well, that we will never know, unfortunately, but what I do know is that being given the opportunity to portray him in The Great Caruso was the greatest thrill of my life.
I've heard Caruso was an inspiration to you.
He was that and more. In fact, his name was a household word around our place in Philadelphia. We didn't have a lot of money, but when Dad could afford it, he would always buy a new Caruso record for us. We especially loved his Neapolitan folk songs.
Didn't you sing along with his records?
Yes. Later, when it was thought that I might have a voice, my parents and friends urged me to sing like Caruso. So I would try to sing note for note with the records. Needless to say, it was pretty awful, but I enjoyed it.
Then Caruso's influence entered your life at a comparatively early age.
You could say, in fact, that I was raised on Caruso.
Maybe you know some things about Enrico Caruso that aren't general knowledge.
That's possible.
Well, tell us, Mario, what impresses you most about Caruso? The man, I mean.
Well, the most significant thing about Caruso was his great heart, his warmth and generosity.
Well, how was that shown, Mario?
Caruso could never turn down a friend or even an enemy in need. His payroll was filled with those who had passed their prime on the opera stage, and he gave these people titles, added them to his staff, until for a while it looked like he was keeping the entire musical world in food and shelter.
I understand his home life with his wife Dorothy was a particularly happy one.
I've heard of very few people that were more devoted. Much of what Dorothy Caruso wrote of her husband has been included by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in The Great Caruso. She revealed many interesting sidelights on the man.
Can you give us a couple of examples?
Well, for one thing, Enrico Caruso had a very humble feeling about his voice. He believed that it had been bestowed upon him by God as a gift which he was to use to give happiness and delight to others. He said that was what his name meant, CARUSO, which is Italian for a dear use.
Well, that's something I'm sure few of us realized.
He rarely spoke of his singing, and when he did, it was in a strangely detached way, as though he were only a medium through which the music passed. He would say, the voice was not in communion with the audience tonight. The voice was cold. Or if his performance had pleased him, he would say, the voice sang well. It was at its best tonight.
How odd. And how modest, too.
Yes, he was modest. Modest almost to a fault. And he accomplished more work during a concert season than most singers over a period of years. Would you like to hear how he spent a typical day?
I'm sure all of us would, Mario.
Well, Caruso usually devoted his mornings to business. You know, the signing of contracts and so forth. And after a light lunch, he ate no breakfast. He would give 4 to 5 auditions to promising young singers, then practice for 6 hours every day, which took until around 9 each night. He rarely went out except occasionally to the theater when his friend Ethel Barrymore was appearing on the stage. And around midnight each night he would send for a loaf of bread, order a minute steak, and make a huge sandwich.
Just a little snack, huh, Mario? But tell me, who were his best friends?
Well, I think Caruso's best friends were the so-called little people, the ones who sat in the uppermost balconies at the opera, and the men and women in the street who couldn't afford tickets. For them, he often sang standing in his carriage after a performance was over.
What a guy. I mean, what a gentleman.
No, I think you were right the first time. I think Caruso would like to have been called a good guy. At least, that's what the New York cops called him.
The cops?
Yes, Caruso was the cops' best friend. Whenever they needed a big star for one of their many benefits, they always called on Caruso. Not once did he let him down.
Well, no wonder they called your picture The Great Caruso. He was just that. And about the picture, Mario, tell me, was it a lot of fun to make?
Yes, I guess you'd call it fun, but it was a lot more than that. It was a spiritual experience. I will always be grateful to MGM for the chance to appear in it, and also for the chance to sing with such really great stars as Dorothy Kirsten, Blanche Thiebaum, Yarmila Novotna, Niccolo Moscona, Lucien Amara, Gilbert Russell, Giuseppe Valdengo, Teresa Celli, and others, and well, we sang most of the arias made famous by Caruso and his contemporaries, and it was a whale of a big job, but a very deep satisfaction.
I'm sure it was, Mario. And I'm equally sure that an entertainment-hungry world is waiting for you and the others in Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's Technicolor production, The Great CARUSO. Thank you for being our guest.
Many thanks to you, and so long.